Hello there and welcome to Loose Lips. This is CTV's current affairs show for women, and our special guests tonight are Lisa Jordan, who is the mother of a delightful 8-year-old boy. She's a born and bred Cantabrian and a regular face on CTV for those of you who recognise her. We also have Sheena Hemans. Thanks for coming back, Sheena. She is our resident go-to girl who is the managing director of the Go-To Company, the mother of 19-year-old twin girls and a 13-year-old son. And finally, welcome to the show for the first time tonight, Charlotte Smulders, director of the Christchurch Star and mum to 3 children under 7. She is definitely busy. Welcome to Loose Lips. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us back.
Now, tonight's show is on motherhood, which is why we started talking about, who's got what sort of child. And all of us know that sometimes it's a bit of a juggle. Being a mother is sometimes dubbed the hardest job in the world. We all agree that parenthood is challenging and exhausting, yet the relationship that we have with our children is often considered the most important relationship that we will have in our lives. The expectation for many women is that our identity will be completely consumed by our child if we are to be good mothers. But does looking after another human and being so-and-so's mum actually overtake our own sense of self? I don't know about you guys, but I haven't personally struggled with that. In fact, I've quite enjoyed being Tom's mum or Lockie's mum. Do you sometimes find that you get lost in the playgrounds? You have found that, Sheena?
I mean, obviously my children are now a lot older, but particularly when my twins were young,
twins would gain a lot of attention, I suppose.
Absolutely, and I lost myself entirely.
Really?
I look back at photos of me when they were preschool children age, and I do not recognise myself at all. I wasn't happy, I have to say. I struggled. I found it really hard. Having twins is hard. Having children when they're young is hard, and not everybody copes with it in the same way.
Can I just say, you do not look like you have 19-year-old twins. Like, I would have never guessed that at all.
Yeah,
I'm going to keep you on.
Yeah, you're very handy, Lisa.
Yeah. No, honestly, I would never have guessed that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now, Lisa, you've actually had children quite young. I don't know about you, Charlotte.
I'm sort of the Generation X. I've had a career, so I've always worked, so I don't actually feel like I've been lost.
Right, okay.
I worked throughout my pregnancies. As soon as I've had children, I've continued working. I was actually proofing a magazine in hospital with 2 children, so I've kept going.
Right.
But I think that's also really important because my children see the way that I operate. Good role model, hopefully.
So you never actually felt like you lost your identity at all then?
I don't. My business was also evolving when I was having children.
Okay.
So we were sort of at the beginning of it. I continued to work. I didn't stop, and I guess that's life. Life keeps going, and when you have children, whilst you always say life isn't going to change, it does, but they've got to also slot into your life.
Right. Okay.
I think there's a lot of pressure, though, to be, I thought that being a good mum meant being a stay-at-home mum. And now I don't think that's the case because I've done both, being a working mum and a stay-at-home mum. But at the time, I definitely thought that, I have twins, I don't want anyone else to look after them, I want to stay at home. But it wasn't the best thing for me.
Yeah.
And it's better for me going to work.
Yeah.
I'm a much better mother.
Yeah.
Yes, I would have been a happier person too.
The guilt doesn't leave you.
No.
Just because you do go to work, there's still every time you leave, there's that pulling factor.
Every time. Lisa, you had children quite young. You had your wee boy quite young.
Yes.
How was it for you? Did you feel pressure to stay at home or did you have to go and work? How did it work?
It was hard for me because I was actually pregnant while I was studying, and I continued to study.
Okay.
And then I decided to leave after I had him because it was just honestly too difficult. But then I went into working as well, and then back to studying, and then I've done the stay-at-home thing as well, and then the full-time work. So I've sort of been all over the place. But
do you find your identity has changed with each section of that?
I
Did you lose
found-
your identity for a wee while?
Well, I did because I was young, so I was only sort of 21, 22, and at that stage everyone else
Still
was going
finding
out,
yourself
you know,
anyway. Yeah.
doing all that sort of stuff, and obviously I couldn't really do that because I was at home with a wee boy. So yeah, it has been quite difficult, and I think I'm still finding my way with that as well. So.
Right.
I don't think it ever changes.
Yeah,
I think it gets
exactly,
easier.
yeah.
I was very different with my son. So when I had him 6.5 years after my daughters, I was completely different. And I continued life and I continued with everything that made me me. And it was a completely different and really enjoyable experience. So
Almost like 2 separate families, isn't it?
almost it
Well,
is.
do they
Yeah.
say
Between
that,
my
if
sister
you've
and I.
got that gap, it's about a 7-year gap, isn't it, where they say actually you're almost 2 separate family
He's
units.
a bit, especially being an only boy, he's a bit like an only child.
Right. Well, like you, Lisa.
He doesn't mind at all.
No, yeah. So when you're dealing with this, what kinds of things do you think, Sheena, what would you have done to have secured an identity when you had your twin girls? Do you think there are things that we should be looking at and taking care of?
Well, I think that I would have taken more care of me. And I think that's the biggest thing, and a lot of parents that I know, or mothers particularly, had the same problem. We don't take enough care of ourselves. We think it's all about taking care of the children. And actually, to be a good mother, you need to be happy.
I think there's so much pressure on us as mothers now, and you know, Plunket is amazing and it's essential, but sometimes I do wonder, like I'm like, you know, when I was going through trying to change from breastfeeding to bottle feeding and things, I was almost berated from Plunket, and I was like, would you rather a happy mother than one that just wants to slit their wrists?
Ah, that's really interesting. So you were getting pressure. You know,
I was, and I'm not condoning Plunket because I do think they do serve a very purposeful role, but at the same time we do need to be mindful, and I love to exercise, I do like to get out and about, and if I couldn't do that, I would not be a happy person.
Yeah. I'd like to ask you a bit more about that pressure of, you know, what's the right thing to do, the bottle fed versus breastfed, the disposable nappies versus the cloth ones. You know, there's a lot of pressure there. Lisa, how did you find that being younger? And did you have a lot of people chipping in their opinions?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because it's all completely new. There's no guide to this is what happens and this is what
where's
you
the
do.
manual?
Exactly.
Did he never get a manual?
So I was
get one when you gave birth.
Where was it?
Give birth
So
with
I
a
was
manual
constantly
too.
asking my parents, because there's 5 of us kids, so I knew that they had some experience. But
Can I just jump in? We also don't have that family support like we used to have.
Yeah.
Like you go back to a few generations ago, family was very, very important and very supportive. Your mother may go to work, but the grandparents will look after the children and things. So we
Did you
also
have
don't have that teaching of our parents.
I tell you what, after the break, I would like to talk a little bit more about this, because I think that the whole idea of the mummy wars and the perfection that we're supposed to achieve as mothers is a bit of a hot topic. Stay with us, we'll be back soon. Welcome back to Loose Lips. Tonight we are talking motherhood. Now, we've all envied the gorgeous A-list mothers who effortlessly seem to juggle their cute kids and stellar careers whilst managing to look thin and fabulous all the time. But these are rarefied women who are setting the bar far too high for us normal mothers to achieve, I think, anyway. So for starters, the average Kiwi mum doesn't have the money or the access to helpers and personal trainers that all of these women do. Despite all the books and the advice out there, the magazines, nothing can really prepare a woman for the reality of a baby. Now, 20% of new mothers experience some symptoms of depression, and 1 in 10 fathers experience the same. Kids can be a great source of joy, but the present climate demands that we sacrifice everything to be a good parent, and if we aren't, then we're perceived to be failing. Now, mummy wars are nothing new, and there have always been those perfect mothers who claim to know best. Issues such as working mothers versus stay-at-home, nannies versus daycare, all of these issues weigh heavily on the shoulders of new mothers and leave them feeling confused and miserable. It seems that parents today are trying too hard to live up to this perfection, often perpetrated in the media. What should we be doing to make parenthood a happier experience? Is there advice that we should be giving to new mothers? Should we be pitching it differently?
Yeah, I personally, I'm quite confident. I don't listen. I do what my gut tells me. I do ask my mother. I've got a couple of close girlfriends, and you know, you just throw it around. And I think you've really got to trust yourself, because there is so much advice out there.
Well, actually, that's probably really good advice to give. Is
Yeah.
okay, trust yourself and go by a little bit of gut instinct. Would that have been useful for you, Lisa?
I think just having people that are actually honest about it, like don't sugarcoat it. It's not fantastic all the time. It's not amazing. You know, well, it might be at times, but it's not always like that. There's no way.
No, absolutely not.
No, the sleepless nights, you know, just everything that you have to deal with, it can't be fantastic constantly. And anyone that sort of portrays that, even in the media or whatever, it is not true. It's great. Just not all the time.
It's a real shock to your system, I think. And I mean, for me, I'd never even held a baby.
Actually,
and then
I'm in that
twins.
boat too. I had never changed a nappy at all.
And then I was
until-
juggling 2 babies,
Oh my goodness,
I
twins
had
were
no idea what I was doing. I'd feed them when they were tired and put them to bed when they were hungry. I honestly, literally had no idea what I was doing, and
See, I'm
it's
a real
really
routine
difficult.
person.
See, I'm not at
Neither.
all.
Totally
Not at all.
routine. But one of my editors, she's just had a baby, and she was asking me something, and I was like, mother knows best. And you do. Like, if you've got a sick kid, you're the one that knows, not your doctor half the time.
Yeah. And routines obviously worked for you the best.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm an organised person. I need a routine. As I said before, I was working in hospital and things. I had deadlines. I needed to juggle. So
there's a pretty good chance genetically your kids respond to a routine than yourself.
Well,
I have to
always
admit,
say
I'm somewhere
kids like
probably in the
routines.
middle. Well,
I
yeah.
hope.
Yeah, and I
Sometimes.
had to adopt. I'm not a routine person. I'm a very creative, fly by my seat of my pants kind of person. But I had to adopt routines, especially with having two at the same time, because otherwise I just wouldn't have survived. But it didn't come naturally, and that's, I guess, what I'm saying is that motherhood doesn't. Everyone thinks that women should know just because we're women that it is something that we know what we're doing. We don't. It comes, it doesn't come naturally. But you have to learn, and you have to work out and go with your gut to see what works for you and for your children as well, for your child or your children. It's a joint thing.
It's often males as well doing it, isn't it?
Actually, I was just
Females
thinking
have
that
gone back to
too.
work.
My husband and I both were discovering what to do, and we had our eldest in Australia, and it was very much of those first few weeks were like, okay, we're both trying to work this out. And we experimented and sort of found systems and ways that worked. And then, of course, it all went to pot because we moved back to New Zealand. And we're like, okay, everything you had planned is out the window. Start again. Yeah, because the plans keep changing.
But it isn't an easy thing, and I think, earlier on you said it is the hardest thing that we, I think, as human beings have to do. I mean, all the challenges that we have, because we're actually responsible for a human being's life and their mental strength and emotional strength and everything. It's a huge responsibility, far greater than any job or anything else that we do in our lives.
And it's constantly changing as well. There's no one, this child did this, so it's going to be the same for every other child. I've only got one, so I don't know. But it changes every day. So you can't stick with something that works forever, because it possibly will change as that child grows up and you change, and you learn new things as well. So
well, I'm at different stages to you guys with having teenagers and almost grown up children. So I have been through all of that and can tell you absolutely that even when they're 19, they're still, they still call you and need help, and they still need support.
I still go to my parents.
Yes, exactly.
It's nice to see that you've survived.
Yeah, well, I
quite
did,
like,
exactly.
Phil, you can
There were
do
times
it.
I thought I was never going to.
Yeah.
But I did, thank God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, the best piece of advice I think I was ever given was to raise your children as if you've got 6. And I thought that actually worked really nicely, because, you can worry about it to a certain extent, but then you've got 5 other kids you have to deal with as well. And so it's like, okay, let that bit go and just move on.
There's quite a lot of stuff about
quite
helicopter
good.
parents at the moment as well. There was a really good article that my husband showed me about that in The Economist recently.
Now,
And
when
it is,
people
I
talk about helicopter parents, what do they actually mean?
totally overprotective, basically watching every move, not letting there be children. We become really PC. Are they allowed to play in the dirt? Are they allowed to climb on chairs?
there
So,
would
yeah.
be kids if they didn't.
No, exactly.
Well, there's a lot of these helicopter
you
parents are
can't now.
not. Okay.
You can't have lolly scrambles.
Oh, why not?
I guess in case they get hit by a swing falling or something.
Because we didn't survive those lolly scrambles back in the day.
Exactly. It's all got too PC, really.
Well, what did that article say? What did you and your husband sort of decide? Is it sort of that
I
it's
think you
perhaps
need
not
to
a good thing?
back
You need to
off
find a
slightly and let them develop. They'll learn the confidence. They'll learn the way of the world. They will be inquisitive, and they'll hopefully get out there and be quite adventurous and things, instead of being mollycoddled and mummy and daddy do everything for me. No.
I'd like to also just touch quickly on the idea of perfection that we were just talking about before in the last commercial break. I think it's really important that we all acknowledge when you do actually get help in. I outsource cleaning.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. I really appreciate the extra help that I get in the house, and it allows me to go off and do the other jobs that I do in my life. And I think it's really important that when you see a media spread that you're not going, oh, she can do it all, why can't I? I've got piles of washing and custard. And we do need nannies, we do need cleaners, we do need assistants if you're going to go off and work at the same time. Are we portraying an unrealistic sort of goal?
I think
To varying degrees, though, because I am fortunate. I do work very hard. I do a lot of charity work, and I do have help. I couldn't do what I do without it. But then I'm very mindful that there's a lot of people out there that also work because they have to work, they need to bring the dollars in, and they can't afford that extra help.
But then you need to have accounted for that extra help somehow. So there's either after school care or there's before school care. There needs to be something, because you can't leave
Definitely.
kids alone. So
Yeah, there's always ways around it.
I don't know how a lot of people do manage though.
Yeah, a lot of whānau support, a lot of family
Yes,
leaping in.
definitely. Yeah.
What about you,
My
Lisa?
parents are so helpful, and I've got siblings and friends and things that I wouldn't be able to work if I didn't have that support. They pick them up after school for me because I'm
Yeah.
at work. You know, I don't know how anyone does it by themselves completely. Like,
I
I'm a
don't
solo
think they
parent, but
do.
completely by themselves.
What do they say? It takes a village to raise a child,
Yeah.
and I think
That's
that's
a marvellous saying,
You know, I
that
mean,
one.
and it
Yeah.
really is true. And it doesn't have to be immediate family. I mean, I'm, you know, come from another country. I've become here from the UK and had no help. I mean, my mother is actually here now. But you know, it was really, really difficult. But you get together with other mothers. You know, we used to help each other out and look after each other's children, and you find support systems in the best ways that you can. And I think those support systems are extremely essential because you
Yeah.
couldn't do it, or else people don't work.
No,
you know, and that's
exactly.
the other thing. And I've done both. I've been a stay-at-home mum with young children. I've also worked in a job with young children, and I've also got a business now. With older children, and
can't
none
get
of
away
it's
from them.
easy. It's always, you know, it's always a juggle.
And without that support, we go back 50 years where we actually don't have the choice anymore. Stay with us. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about choice, to have kids or not. Welcome back to Loose Lips. Now, we are talking motherhood tonight, and it used to be considered a universal truth that every woman, no matter how successful, must be in want of a husband and family to feel complete. Is this still relevant though? Do you still feel judged on whether you're on the married with kids scale? Well, now some women are bucking that trend and choosing to be childless altogether. Younger women today are making a conscious effort to rewrite the life script and often leave out children. Now, Suzanne Heinz is a conceptual artist who responded to persistent family questions about why she wasn't married yet and didn't want children by creating Life Once Removed. This is a tongue-in-cheek retort to the people who said that her life was somehow lacking. The photographs that she takes as an artist depict a life of domestic bliss with her perfect plastic husband, Chauncey, and mannequin daughter, Mary Margaret. So these are the images that she has taken around the world and created quite an exhibition with, and it really does make you think. Is this something that younger women these days are actually making a conscious decision to not have children? Are they then having to perform and have plastic families? You know,
I think plastic. I think that's going a little bit far. But
It makes a good
I've
point,
got
though,
quite a
doesn't
few
it?
younger friends who aren't interested in having children, or certainly aren't at this stage in their lives. Whether that might change, you know, who knows? But they don't certainly see it as being the be-all and end-all in a life. They see that they've got so many other things that they can achieve, so many other things, challenges and travel and, you know, everything else that they can
have
do.
their Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
What's that?
Keep their bodies. I mean, I think I said to you earlier that we were talking about Helen Mirren the other day and how fabulous she looks in the 100-Foot Journey, which is a wonderful film, by the way. And a friend of mine said, well, she hasn't had children. No wonder she looks wonderful.
Yeah.
And
I
there
also
is an
think
element of that.
If you don't know what you're missing out on, it's not going to harm you, is it?
Right, yeah.
You know, I waited till quite, sort of probably Generation X, I waited to have children. What is more upsetting, I think, is those that do want to have children, but they're working in their career, they're travelling overseas. It's always on their agenda to have it,
But where
but
gets
are waiting till later, and then they
When's
have
the
all the
perfect
fertility
time?
issues.
Yeah.
I think that's probably more what's happening.
Or they missed the boat completely, which happened to a friend of mine in the UK.
Yeah.
And that's really sad when you get to sort of, you know, late 40s or whatever, and suddenly, you know, you don't have a
ready.
child and you're
You
ready,
don't
and
want
you
them.
suddenly realise that you did actually want them after all, and then it's actually too late, and that must be
Or that's when
devastating.
you start the whole business, and I say business quite pointedly, of fertility, because it is a major business for women in their late 30s and early 40s. And there's been a lot of talk about the commercialisation of fertility as
There's
well.
heaps of clinics opening up.
Yeah.
I also know people that have used sperm donors and things because they haven't found Mr. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, if you're waiting for that perfect time, is it ever actually going to be there?
Well, I think we're too fussy now.
No.
aren't we? We want
See,
everything.
yeah.
Well, I just look at those photos of the plastic family. I'm thinking how nice and quiet that would be. How easy things would be if if they weren't speaking and they were just always there and happy, and you're off
Yeah.
skiing or whatever the
Yeah, it's
photos
tempting,
were.
isn't it?
Yeah, nice. I wouldn't mind that at all. I've got my wee boy. If I just have a mannequin husband, I think I'd be fine.
Fine. conversation will be just a tad stilted. But, you know.
Could be better than what it possibly could be if I actually found it.
No one to argue with you, though.
Potentially, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have a certain amount of freedom then as a single mum to be able to go, hey, I'm the only one making the decisions here, it's fine, what I say goes?
Well, yes, but I also find it really hard because if I make the wrong decisions, that's all on me. There's nobody else to blame. To have that argument with, it's just me.
Yeah.
It's all my fault. So
It's a bit of pressure.
And sometimes you want to have your decision backed up.
Yes,
and I think, and I mean,
definitely.
I've been raising my 3 children on my own for or in joint custody with my husband, ex-husband, and you know, and even when they're with me on my own, I sometimes go, oh, I just wish that he was here to go, yes, that's the right thing to do, because sometimes, or just for backup, because especially when you've got more than one child, you know, they can gang up on you. You know, when you're saying no ice cream until you eat your Brussels sprouts, it's not.
And you've got 3 of them,
Yeah.
and diminutive Sheena's going,
Exactly,
I mean it.
exactly. And yeah, my girls have been taller than me for ages, and my son is about that much shorter and looking forward to when he's taller. So it is. Sometimes you really want to have backup. So I think being a single parent is another entirely different story.
Yeah,
You
for
know.
sure. We take our hats off to
Yeah.
you, Lisa.
well,
You're
you
doing
see,
an
I don't
amazing
know
job.
what it's like for you guys. So
Mind you, sometimes, especially if you've got a husband who's travelling a lot and he hasn't been away that much this year, but we have had years in the past where he's been away a lot, often you feel very much like a single parent, and yet you don't get the perks of sharing custody, you know,
Yeah.
and going, oh, cool, I've got a week off.
Yes.
You know, and sometimes I think, oh, that'd be so nice.
yeah, it would be
Oh,
nice.
It is nice.
Well, yeah, so you don't get that either,
No,
that's true.
none of that.
No.
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 But luckily, I've got family and friends to help.
But
out,
being a
so.
younger mother, do your parents play quite a large role?
Yeah, I'm so lucky that they have actually been here and they're in the same town, and you know, all of that kind of stuff to help me out. Otherwise,
That is really good.
who knows where I'd be right now. So.
What about the bond that you would have with your son too? Do you think it's a wee bit closer than other parents
See,
and their
I
children?
was wondering that because I'm a younger mum, I enjoy a lot of the things that he likes as well, and we had that kind of
Yeah.
connection. But I don't know how different that is to people who are a bit older. But I do like the fact that we're.
How many hours
we
a
have
week do
that.
you spend on Minecraft?
I was talking about Minecraft earlier. My son loves it, but it's not. Yeah, I'm not a computer game person at all. But yeah, I do wonder what the difference is with that age gap as well. So
I think it depends on the connection
you
as
feel.
opposed to the age. I think, my son and I, as I said, he's almost like an only child because of the age gap. But he and I love all the same movies, and we're all into superhero movies and all the action things and everything like that. And he thinks I'm the coolest mum ever because I love the Spider-Man movies and look forward to watching Thor and everything else. You know, I love all of that. Love it.
How do you go with that, Charlotte? You've got
No.
2 girls and 1 boy?
They're not interested.
Oh, you wait till your boy's a bit
I know,
older.
everything's frozen.
Oh, that's quite good. Yeah, okay. Well, that's not too bad. Actually, I did I forced my 13-year-old to go to Frozen, and he went, Mum, seriously?
Oh, yeah.
He actually sat there. I have to, take my hat off. I was really pleased that he did that, but he was kind of going, didn't do it for
Oh,
me.
I couldn't have persuaded Alex under any
How nice
circumstances.
of him to actually go along with you.
It was actually. It was really good. So
I
yeah.
made Pierre go to Disney on Ice.
Oh,
Fantastic. I believe that was very popular.
I don't know, I didn't go.
I can imagine Pierre, he would have loved it.
So now that would be a wonderful thing of having, we can share those responsibilities. And often, like if you're away travelling, does Pierre sort of pick up the slack?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I always like to have one parent at home for bedtime.
Yeah.
Generally, I like to be home for dinner time. So, yeah, the kids, they do come first.
Yeah. Look, thank you so much for joining me tonight. We've had a wonderful chat. We've got 4 if I include myself. We have 4 very different styles of families, all with their different stresses. I think the bottom line is that none of us know exactly what we're doing, and we're all just making it up. It is a very important job, but it's not the only worthwhile thing that a woman can do with her life, and we're all working hard to find that balance in our lives and finding the time to fit it all in. Now that's the bit where I personally think that we often fail, because we should stop beating ourselves up about it. As long as we're doing the best we can for ourselves and our family, no matter what those families consist of, then we're doing just fine. Thanks very much, Lisa, Charlotte and Sheena. You've been watching Loose Lips, and you'll see us next week on CTV.